Hello and welcome to Work Fast TV. Here we talk about the future of work and how the internet is changing how we work together. Before we start, we'd like to thank our sponsor, SAP, a world leader in network solutions for companies of all sizes. Thanks for the mugs, by the way. Thanks to SAP for supporting Work Fast TV and making the show possible. Last week, Sanford Dicker told us about co-working and how connection improves productivity for some of the smallest and youngest companies. Today, we'll be talking with some folks from Best Buy who will tell us how networks are improving efficiency and empowering employees at one of the world's largest retailers. First, though, I'd like to welcome back my co-host, Shel Israel. Hey, Shel, how are you?
Hey,
how was your week?
My week was colorful.
I saw some things on the internets about you.
You can't believe what you read on the blogs.
I have to call it the internets because of where I was this week.
That's true. Tell us about where you were this week. You broke some new ground this week.
Well,
that was pretty interesting.
I met with 6 congressmen, a senator, an FCC commissioner.
Have you checked to see that you have your wallet with you and your watch?
They cleaned me out. It's funny, the museums are all free there, but we already paid a lot for them.
Yeah.
And we were standing on Nancy Pelosi's private balcony. I mean, that was pretty cool. And got to see the CEO of the National Cable Association. And
and I understand your son Patrick nailed the FCC.
Yeah, he was talking about porn with the FCC commissioner. I mean, he's a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah, there were no pictures though, were there?
No, they would have been censored. But it's interesting being around there because we saw 2 Washington D.C.s. One stuck in like the 1940s or 1950s. I mean, I had people calling me up and trying to meet me in between meetings and saying, hey, the group that I'm working for, or the commission I'm working for, is still run on paper, man. That's how bad it is. And then on the other side, I walk into Nancy Pelosi's office, Speaker of the House, and there's a blogger there using WordPress, and I go to John Culbertson, a Republican, and he's using Quick and Twitter right there on the floor.
Wow.
And he showed it to the president, in fact, and almost got the first Quick in the Oval Office, but the Secret Service says, no. In fact, I was on the White House lawn yesterday filming the president taking off in the helicopter, and they let me film everything except for when the president was outside. They said, I can't do live. None of the TV, by the way, is live. When you see the president leaving the White House or whatever, it's always at least 10 minutes delayed because of security concerns, because they don't want somebody to be able to say, oh, the president's out there, let's do something. So,
wow.
Yeah. It's pretty cool, but we were quicking and twittering and friend feeding right from the Rose Garden.
So
today, by the way, to take off of my learnings, I'm gonna write a thing about what the tech industry's agenda should be, and there's three things I'm gonna propose. One is we need a national chief technology officer. I mean, companies like Best Buy have a technology officer, have somebody, have a geek in charge that you can go to and talk about, hey, how come our systems aren't working, or how can we make this better, how can we do things like what we're going to be talking about on the show here. Two, a lot of the congressmen wanted to get a computer into every kid's hands, right? I just don't think that's going to work. And I talked with several of them about that. I think an iPhone-like device is going to be very popular. In fact, I was at Zoe Lofgren. She's a congresswoman from Silicon Valley. And as soon as I walk in, she starts talking iPhone and Android with me. And I'm going, man, I'm geeking out with a congresswoman.
There's no place like home.
You sort of expect that from Silicon Valley, right? But she's up to date on the latest technologies. And the third thing is, we visited several of the great museums there, and the journalism world just got a brand new museum. It's stunning, right?
Wow.
But there's no museum really for science and technology, And
Smithsonian?
Well,
they do a little of that.
They do a little bit of it, but they don't have it as a front and centerpiece like journalism has. Like the American Indians just got a new one. You walk down the mall, you see the World War II Memorial, you see the Lincoln Memorial, you see science and the space and air museum, right? Which is a little bit of that, but it's more from the military complex, not from, how science and technology is changing our lives. And that's what the show's about. So
yeah, let's talk about Best Buy for a little while.
Yeah.
Because, last week we had Sanford on. He's about one person, lonely, going from his home into a co-working place. Best Buy is no startup. They're number 72 in Fortune 500 list. They did $40 billion last year. They do business in 3 countries. 2 are close together, the US and Canada, then they're over in China. And what is important, the reason they're on this show is they're using behind-the-firewall technology to empower employees. And they're going to talk today a little bit about how that is coming to the bottom line. So here we have my favorite topic, social media affecting productivity, which makes it a bingo for this show. Yeah. Please welcome Michele Azar, who is the VP for Emerging Customer Relations, and Gary Koelling, who is co-founder of the amazing BlueShirt Nation.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to be here.
Beginning with you, Michele, I've never met anybody with that title before. What is it that you do?
So it's all the new stuff. Customers are shopping, learning, and buying beyond the existing channels that we reside in today. And we're looking at different ways of being present, stretching the brand into new spaces. And the number one thing that we're betting on is empowering employees to capture growth at the local level. So the clear message is we're empowering employees to capture growth at the local level. And you'll hear it when you walk into a Best Buy store, you'll hear it in the earnings release. And we're actually doing it through social media is one topic, which I find really interesting.
So how did this all start? I mean, you didn't have a board level meeting at Best Buy, a $40 billion company, and say, hey, let's use social media. I mean, how did it get going? Where was the first seed? And how did it spread through 1,300 stores?
So, Shell, it's interesting. A lot of this is emergent. So we have the perfect storm for business innovation. And about a year ago, a bunch of folks, leaders at Best Buy Corporate, met and talked about, should we let all this stuff emerge or should we put together a program? And at the end of the day, it was let the employees experiment, and we'll let all of these new things and innovation emerge, and we're not going to try to control it. So I give the senior leadership a lot of credit for making that decision. And the second piece, not only strong management support and the culture, but isn't it funny how the perfect demographic exists within Best Buy? So I'm not sure if you realize, but 64% of our retail employees fall between the ages of 16 and 25. And so when I say perfect storm for business innovation, it really rests in that employee demographic and in the leadership empowering those employees to make a difference. And what's interesting, I'll share a few examples of how listening to employees and empowering employees through markets has spontaneously led to solving issues for the company and shaping firm policy.
You brought a clip along with you that shows a little bit about that, didn't you?
I did, and so a couple of things that really bring this to light would include, wow, IT systems take many years to develop and months and months of planning. And so one of the things that's changed, and I give our IT organization a lot of credit for participating and allowing adaptive, flexible IT to take hold. So one example is crowdsourcing employees out of our field developers. So the same person that's selling you the plasma TV could be an expert on Ruby on Rails or Drupal. And it's this amazing talent that we have. And if we harness this collective wit and wisdom of these employees, the net generators within the field, how great is that when they start to solve problems for the company? One example is Scott Kirsten, a social media evangelist, who took this upon himself to solve a real issue, the employee toolkit. So let's take a look at that.
Let's take a look at
got a
that.
request for an estimate on how much this was going to cost. and the thing was going to end up costing us $6.5 million. And the company that was going to build it for us said we could probably have a proof of concept out to a test district, which is about 10 stores, in about 8 months to a year. And we got 6 employees up to the corporate office, paid for their travel, paid for their hotel, ended up spending about $250,000, and 6 weeks later, we had a proof of concept out to that test district.
So it's amazing. So think about this. These folks were too young to rent a car. A few pizzas and Red Bull later, we had our system developed, which is amazing and empowering, and people love the story. It's not perfect, but wow, what a testament to the culture we've created.
One neat thing about the show is we have a live chat room going on while the people are watching the show. And one guy said, I wonder if social engagement helps with employee retention and reducing turnover, which is always a challenge for retailers, isn't it?
Yes, and I would say that from a retention standpoint, it's going to make a difference. And in fact, if we try to fight this, we're going to lose employees. Because with or without us, the users are in charge, our employees are in charge. And I'll give you a couple examples. So the 401k program, for example, we had 18% participation rate, and finance and HR really wanted to crack this code and launch a program to attract more participation. So instead of trying to appeal from the traditional HR methods, corporate down, we empowered BlueShirt Nation and employees to run a video campaign to attract users. And in your own words, explain why 401k is important and why you should participate. After the video contest came to fruition, the results of the 401k went from 18% to 47% and holding. So it's a strong testament for using social media within the firm to shape policy and drive results.
Yeah.
And wow, what a difference that made. So the video winners presented to the board of directors, presented the video, spent a week with the executives, and went to a Twins game. How great is that?
Wow. And that's sort of where we met up. I saw you present that in a conference in Israel.
Exactly.
And that's what got me excited about having you on the show. We were talking before the show started about how similar a big company is to the problems that are happening in government, that some pieces are really far behind and you're trying to struggle to get them to come up to speed, and other parts are really bleeding edge and they're trying to spread the message around to the other employees. Tell me a little bit about what you're seeing from inside Best Buy and how this stuff spread.
You know, 2 years ago, we had a PowerPoint deck that said we need a social network for employees, right? We had some very specific things that we were trying to solve with it, but the gist of it was here's an idea of what we should be doing inside Best Buy. We took it around from meeting to meeting. Everyone said, that's a great idea, you should go talk to this person. And then they said, that's a great idea, you should go talk to this person. And then they said, this is a great idea, you should go talk to this person. And then we found out that we were back talking to the same person that we'd started with.
Yeah.
And so we talked to our IT advisors inside the company, and they said, this is going to be expensive. And at the time, the co-founder of BSN, BlueShirt Nation, Steve Bent, and myself, we were working in the ad group. This was not our day job, trying to come up with a social network. This was something we were doing on the side.
Just wondering, sir, you were an ad guy.
Ad guy.
This was really not part of your day job.
No, it was like...
And you were going around Best Buy stores trying to figure out how to make better advertising?
Yeah. I mean, we were going around basically with clipboards saying, what's the customer saying? What's the customer saying? What's the customer saying? And we were getting some, it was good. We were getting some good feedback. But that doesn't scale. And so we said, well, we need to build this. And then when they said it's going to be really expensive, we went, oh, okay, well, that's not going to work. And the PowerPoint isn't working anymore, so let's just go build it. And so we went outside the firewall, bought the domain and a year of hosting for like $100, and installed Drupal and just got our hands dirty and started building it. And
Were you a Drupal developer before that?
No, dude.
No, you're not writing too much of the code, are you?
Not anymore, thankfully.
He looks like a geek, but he's really not.
Yeah. No, I mean, I
You never know. I've met all sorts of people who write code.
Yeah. No, I mean, I wrote enough code to get us in trouble several times, and that's not my thing. No. Yeah. But I think the parallel is that you can't go to the center of a power structure to develop social media. Most power structures aren't social, right? They're hierarchical. They're in place and they're structured in a way that it allows them to achieve some sort of an end, whether it's creating legislation or whether it's marketing and selling a product. And so I don't know that you can look to the center of those structures to help spin up social technology.
Yeah.
I think you have to find a way to empower the edges. And I think that's one of the things that I have to give Best Buy props for, that is culturally, no one came and shut us down, right? We've gone around and we've talked to other companies and like, dude, they didn't shut you down?
Yeah.
Because at other companies, they're like, that would never fly. That would never fly. Do something outside the firewall, forget about it.
I've talked to quite a few retail organizations in the last year, and the sort of thing that you have done with BlueShirt Nation, I have heard from upper management, at least 4 companies, that will never happen here.
Yeah.
I think they're wrong, but that's because the decision maker I'm talking to is about my age and will retire soon.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and
be replaced.
I actually wouldn't disagree with it. It probably won't happen there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think in a lot of ways it's a fluke. And the guy who's saying this will never happen here is probably sitting at the top of the structure, right? He's the president. And none of his people, none of his cabinet are in charge of making sure that stuff like that happens. And so it won't happen there.
Yeah. Tell me what it looks like when I come to what you've built. What does it look like? A wiki? Does it?
It looks like Facebook. I mean, there's a dashboard on the front that there's a place for news, there's a place for what we call adverbits when we have stuff that we want to highlight. If there's a vendor that's opening a new room on the site, people can click on that and go look at these vendor rooms. Or if there's something we want them to volunteer for, like we just rolled out something called BlueShirt Core, which puts blue shirts out in disaster areas with the Red Cross to help with technology needs to help support the Red. So
that's in the U.S.
and then there's
globally?
Yeah, it's in the U.S. And then there's feeds, and then there's a bar that says here's all the recent stuff. There's stuff at the bottom that here's all the newest members, and then you've got kind of a control panel on the side that says I want to post something. I've got new private messages. I've got new whatever, this little status thing, a Twitter-ish thing that says I am, wondering if anyone's using this feature or whatever, I am just getting off of work or so. We tried to make it we tried to make it as much like the users told us to make it as we could. Because when we started, we made it look like what we thought it should look like, which was sort of really dry and ugly. That's how we made it first. And they all went, that's dry and ugly, I'm not going there. And so we said, well, tell us then how we should make it so that you'll go there. And in the last 2 years has basically been in the service of those emails, trying to change it, trying to make it a place where they would go.
What surprising thing have you seen come out of this effort? What happened that you didn't expect, maybe?
The whole thing. Honestly, I wish. So, I mean, there's specifics, but Michele alluded to it earlier. I mean, when we started it, it was a way for us, for Steve and myself, to go out to stores and say, tell us what the customers are thinking, so that we could use those insights to make better advertising. And the people that showed up at the site said, I'm not really interested in that. So unless I can do something else, I'm not going to come back. And we were like, wait, come back, And so that was the first thing that surprised me, was that they're not going to talk to us just because we ask. There's unless the center of ownership can be on them, they're not really interested. So I think that was the thing that surprised me the most, was that this realization that I can actually give them that control, and they won't burn the house down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So just a couple of things. There's 22,000 members of BSN now.
Yeah.
Out of 150,000 employees.
Yep.
And it's how old?
It's about 2 years old now. Yeah.
Wow. And Michele talked earlier about how this is employee empowerment and how they help each other. Can you give me a juicy story about how management stood by as one 16 to 25-year-older helped another through BSN?
The conversations that happen on the site are really varied. I mean, there have been people have come out and said, I'm a new dad, and my daughter's in trouble. She is having medical problems, and I'm out here just to talk to people, and people would flock to that conversation and would provide support. Someone else would come out to the site and say, anybody into World of Warcraft? And again, people would flock to that conversation. There were times too when people would say, here's a picture of a display case I got at my store and it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in my store, it doesn't work. And someone from our environmental design group saw it and said, oh my God, you got the wrong display case, let me send you a different one. And within days, the wrong one had been taken out and the right one had been put in. And there's over and over there are stories like that. A couple, you know, I mean, and there are big ones like Michele said about the 401k, that, you know, you step, when HR came to us and said, hey, we want to run a video contest for 401k, we went, yeah, go ahead, knock yourself out, that sounds boring as hell. And then after it was all over, we were like, oh my God, that was really cool, you know. And so almost every day is like
employees want to teach each other about things,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One of the most profound things from my perspective was when the discount policy was going to change, because we were looking for SG&A savings, and the discount policy was determined as one way of providing savings. And so the decision was made from a corporate committee, and I give the executives a lot of credit, because through these social networks, BlueShirt Nation, Water Cooler, floods of employee opinions came in, and within a week the decision was reversed. And what we had thought was a cost savings move, the perceived value of the discount was far greater in our employees' eyes than in the eyes of the executives from a cost saving standpoint. So listening to employees through markets is a common thread here, and it's happening over and over again at Best Buy.
Yeah, and it was a conversation too. It wasn't just a rant, you know. I mean, they said, "Here's why it has value," and everybody went, "Oh yeah, I see that. I see that." You know, it wasn't just it wasn't like a mob. It wasn't like a mob showed up with torches and pitchforks and said, "You better change the policy back." That wasn't the case.
Yeah.
We're getting some questions from the audience right now, and you can join us in at fastcompany.tv, by the way, if you're watching live. How much did you guys spend to build this? I wish people would use their names, because then I could use their names. But some guy just asked, how much did you spend to build this stuff?
So, for example, BlueShirt Nation, it was very cost effective. Gary, what did you spend on BlueShirt Nation? I mean, it's open source software, so.
Yeah, I mean, we.
But even open source software costs something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Fast Company's on Drupal too, and we have a dozen developers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have, all told, I think we have probably maybe a half a dozen people working on it. We spend, gosh, I don't even know. I mean, it's we probably spend 20 hours a week on it, keeping it current, making changes that are asked for, you know, tracking down bugs, doing upgrades, things like that. And so, you know, whatever a Drupal Ninja costs for 20 hours a week or 40 hours a week, that's about what we spend.
Very cool.
And the other thing that's happened is BlueShirt Nation was a catalyst for a number of other things that took off. So out of BlueShirt Nation, the innovation marketplace took off. So it's called the Loot Marketplace. And we were really worried about it becoming this online suggestion box.
Yep.
And it has evolved to where an employee in a store can register an idea, and anyone from corporate can fund the idea, offer to help, and essentially anyone within a Best Buy store has access to capital, thought leadership, et cetera, through this online idea marketplace.
It's a Drupal app too.
You've got a Geek Squad thing going too.
So Geek Squad is part
Yeah.
of that employee developer community. So
Yeah.
Robert Stevens has this idea of action figures. So it's the same flexible IT development notion where we know we have to become more agile. And so if we have a rapid IT development capability, then we have a lot of small bits that lead to that billion-dollar growth opportunity.
SV Dodge is asking, is it voluntary to use this, and how many active users do you have?
It's totally voluntary, and I think that's one of the things early on that was a huge difference, because it wasn't, we couldn't say, you must go here for this information. It was, please come here. How can we make it so that you come here, right? So immediately we had to start listening. And I would say, I think the latest statistic puts us at about 65% active user base, meaning they show up at least once a month, and the average time spent on the site is about 10 minutes.
Very cool. And LH Kent asks, are they using handles or real names? Is there any anonymity allowed in the system?
Yeah, that's a great question too, because early on we held what we called hack slams, where we brought users in from the field and said, okay, here's the site, tell us what sucks. Let's rip it apart, let's change it on the fly right here. And one of the discussions that we had during one of those hack slams was, I don't want to be identified by my Best Buy legal name, right? I want the ability to have a handle, but at the same time, I want to be able to know that that I'm referring to someone with a handle, right? So it's like TFX is one of our users, and yeah, they all have their own handles. So there's this certain amount of anonymity, but if they cross a line, obviously we know who they are.
Yeah. Are there any employees, Jason Tagg is asking, are there any employees assigned as moderators?
That's another great question. As the site kind of grew, we were, people were like, there were members on the site that were more active, and they were helping other users out who would show up and go, I don't know what to do, and someone would go in and say, oh, if you want to post a picture, you just have to click here, here, here. And as time went on, we'd reach out to these guys and say, hey, do you want some administrator privileges so that they can help reset a password or whatever? And we probably have a dozen, maybe a little over a dozen sub-administrators that have access to be able to do some of that stuff. So, yeah, absolutely.
SV Dodge has an interesting question. It sounds like you created a union without having to create a union. Do you worry about groups of employees who are gonna lobby other groups of employees, or create labor management issues or stuff like that? I don't know that Best Buy has that problem, but certainly a company like Boeing worries about that, right?
It's a social network, and it's for fun, and it celebrates everything that's great about the culture. And so this is not a mandatory type of engagement. Yeah. It's up to the users. The users are in charge.
Do you have anything?
It's obviously a concern. I mean, and we spent many days, weeks, and months smoothing the feathers of HR and legal and whatever, and understanding where the bright lines are. And so, yeah, I mean, it has the potential to be used as an organizing tool, and we just have to make sure that the posts don't cross a line that would enable it to be used as an organizing tool.
Well, we're running out of time. I want to very quickly ask the productivity question. How does all this translate to the bottom line?
In 15-second answer, because we're running out of time.
Employee empowerment leads to capturing growth at the local level. Without this employee empowerment, there's no way that we can grow the company. And in terms of quantifying that, I can't quantify it off the top of my head, but wow, it's making a difference, just the culture, and enabling that culture versus shutting it down, which would be so easy to do in a hierarchical environment.
Yeah. Well, thank you. This has been
Thank
a
you.
great half an hour. It's always amazing that both Shell and I, after we get
Thanks.
together after the shows are over, how fast it goes.
Yeah, it's
Too fast.
amazing.
So thanks for giving us a good look at what's going on in your worlds. Shell, who do we have next week?
Next week we have Matt Russell. He has an Office 2 company up in Idaho called T-Sheets. But he's coming onto the show because he's been walking around, flying around, talking to CEOs about what it takes to make successful CEOs, about what it takes to make productivity work in their companies. And the answers are very surprising. The big hint is it ain't the tools.
Yeah. Don't go away, by the way. We're doing a chat in kite.tv/Scopelizer right afterwards and on the Fast Company show.
1, 2, 3. Now get back to work. We're getting good at it, you know?
That's what that
All right, Robert.
Thanks.
Very good.